Hare Krishna, everyone, and welcome. So today we get to dive into one of my absolute favorite chapters of the Bhagavad Gita. Chapter 10, The Opulence of the Absolute. This is where things get really amazing, because Lord Krishna starts to reveal his own glories, teaching us how we can see him in everything and, everywhere around us.
And the whole chapter kicks off from this really beautiful personal place. This isn't just some cosmic lecture from on high. Krishna is speaking as a loving friend to Arjuna. He says, Priyamanaya, because you are dear to me, and Hitakamyaya, for your benefit. These words are so key. They show us that this very confidential knowledge is given out of pure transcendental love, just to help us get fixed in our devotion.
So, here's our roadmap for today's discussion. We'll start by really understanding Krishna as the absolute source of everything. Then, we'll see how that knowledge blossoms into pure devotion. We'll follow Arjuna as he asks for more details, explore some of those divine opulences, and then wrap it all up by learning how to see Krishna everywhere.
Okay, first things first. Lord Krishna has to set the stage for everything he's about to reveal, and he does that by explaining his totally unique, supreme position. It's a position that's unlike any other being, whether we're talking about us here on Earth or even the great demigods in the heavens.
Now, check this out. We've got these two really important words here. Aja, which means unborn, and Anadam, which means beginningless. Now, what's fascinating is that we, as spirit souls, are also described as Aja, unborn. But there's a huge difference. See, we get trapped in the cycle of birth and death because of material conditioning. The Lord, however, he is eternally unborn and has no cause that comes before him. So when he appears in this world, it's not because of some past karma. It's by his own sweet will, through his own spiritual energy.
And just knowing this has a massive payoff. The Lord himself says that anyone who really understands his position as the beginningless source and the supreme master of all worlds, that's Loka Maheshwaram, they become asamuda, which means undiluted. And the benefit? Wow, they are completely freed from all their sinful reactions. So this isn't just some philosophical trivia. This is liberating truth.
All right, so once you grasp that foundational truth, what happens next? Well, naturally, it inspires a deep desire to serve him. So this next part shows us the beautiful, dynamic life of a pure devotee, and, maybe even more amazing, how the Lord personally reciprocates with all that love.
This verse right here, 10.9, is one of the 4 nutshell verses of the entire Gita. It just paints this perfect picture of a devotee's consciousness. Their minds, their very life force, mat chitta mat gata prana. It's all centered on Krishna. And where do they get their happiness? It comes from something very specific, talking about his glories with each other. They feel this incredible pleasure and bliss, tushanticha ramanticha, just from the simple, sublime act of hearing and chanting together.
And here's the thing. This devotional life is absolutely not a one-way street. The Lord himself responds, and he responds directly. For those who are always serving him with love, priti purvakam, he personally gives them the buddhi yoga, the real intelligence, the spiritual GPS they need to navigate their way back to him. He doesn't just leave us to figure it out all by ourselves.
And this next verse shows us exactly how he does it. From right there inside their hearts, as the supersoul, Krishna acts like the ultimate spiritual master. He lights up the Ganya Dipena, the shining lamp of knowledge, and he personally burns away all the darkness of ignorance that's been building up for lifetimes. It's a special kind of mercy called Anukampa Artham.
Okay, so at this point in the conversation, you can just feel the shift. Arjuna's conviction is rock solid. He's totally satisfied with what Krishna has explained. But that satisfaction doesn't make him complacent. It actually fuels this even deeper desire to know and perceive the Lord's glories in a more tangible way.
Arjuna's response right here is the perfect model for any student of the Gita. He says, Sarvam etat ritam manye. I accept everything you have said as truth. This isn't some kind of blind faith. It's a settled conviction that comes from hearing from the proper authority. He totally gets that Krishna's real nature is way beyond what even the greatest demigods can figure out, let alone the demons. And that complete acceptance is what opens the door for the next level of revelation.
And so Arjuna asks this incredibly practical question, really on behalf of all of us. He's saying, okay, Krishna, how can we who are surrounded by this material world constantly think of you? What are the specific forms, the bhavishu, that we can meditate on to actually perceive your presence? This is the question that bridges the gap between understanding the abstract idea and seeing the divine in the world right in front of us.
So in response to Arjuna's heartfelt question,
Lord Krishna begins to describe his vibhutis, his divine opulences. He explains that, look, it's impossible to list them all because they're infinite, but he'll share the most prominent ones to show how he is the absolute best of the best in every single category.
So here are just a few quick examples to give you an idea. Of all the Vedas, he's the Samaveda, the one famous for its beautiful, sweet melodies. Of all sacrifices, he says he is Japa Yajna, the chanting of the holy names. That's the simplest and most powerful sacrifice for our current age. In all living beings, he is the Ch10, the consciousness that makes something alive. And among all the great warriors, he is Lord Ramachandra, the perfect righteous king.
And now Krishna begins this beautiful, almost poetic list. He says, "Of all things that purify, I am the wind, which blows away the dust and clears the air."
Among all the animals in the world, he is the Mriga Indra, the king of beasts, the lion, representing just raw power and majesty. Of all things that are steadfast and unmoving, he is the mighty Himalayas, the greatest mountains, a symbol of sublime grandeur and permanence.
And of all the flowing rivers, he is the Jahanavi, the sacred river Ganges, which represents purity and the life-giving force for millions. Each one of these is like a little meditation, a way to see Krishna's excellence in the world all around us.
So after giving this long but still not even close to complete list of his opulences, the Lord brings it all home. He concludes the chapter by giving Arjuna the ultimate summary, the real key to seeing him not just in the greatest things, but in absolutely everything.
And here's the essential principle right here. Yad yad vibhutimat sattvam mama tejo amsham sambhavam. Basically, whatever you see in this world that is powerful or beautiful or glorious, you should understand that it is born from just a tiny spark of Krishna's infinite splendor. The power of the sun, the beauty of a flower, the brilliance of a genius, it's all just a tiny little reflection of his glory.
And then comes the final absolutely mind-expanding conclusion. Krishna tells Arjuna, look, after hearing all these details, here's the essential truth. With just a single fragment of myself, ekam shena stitor jagat, I pervade and support this entire cosmic manifestation. Just think about that for a second. All the universes, with all their incredible variety and complexity, are all being maintained by just a partial representation of his energy. Just meditating on this one verse can really fix our minds on the unbelievable, inconceivable greatness of the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna. Hare Krishna.